It's 10 o'clock, so I will go ahead and call the meeting to order. And I see that Commissioner Shannon and Commissioner Wilkins are here. I'm here as well, so that is a quorum. And we'll go into 2.0, which is additions and revisions to the agenda. Do you guys have anything?
I did not.
Pat, did you have anything?
I do not.
Okay. The one thing I did want to add, just under unfinished business, and I think, yeah, I see Catherine's on there, is just an update on the Condon pool and sort of where the city of Condon is with that. So if you guys are okay, I will just add that as maybe 6.3, just an update on the Condon swimming pool.
Got it.
Okay.
Judge Campbell?
Yes.
This is Teresa. Under new business 7.1, Susan will not be with us today. She's going to reschedule for March 3rd.
Okay, perfect. So
Thank
we'll
you.
strike as 7.1 today, and we'll reschedule for March. Any other additions or revisions? If not, let's go into 3.0, which is correspondence and public comment. Individuals wishing to address the county court may do so at this time and at other times throughout the meeting. Speakers are asked to raise your hand, which there's a little hand raising thing on here, but really you can just interrupt. To be recognized by the chair, give your name and address and limit comments to 3 minutes. Are there any public comments? And I always like to tell people who are new to the meeting that we are very informal here. So if, as we move through the agenda, there's an item that you would like to make a comment on or participate in the conversation, just let us know. If you dialed in on your phone, it's *6 to unmute yourself. And so anyway, I do not see any public comments, but again, interrupt us if you've got something as we move through. Let's go on to correspondence. We've got a couple of things in here that I'll just note for the record. All of these are available online with the county court packet, but we received the tonnage summary at Columbia Ridge Landfill from Waste Management, and so that is part of correspondence. It's in there. We also received a thank you note from Henry Wilkins on behalf of the Gilliam County Historical Society, thanking us for, they received one of the COVID-19 grants that was administered by the Chamber of Commerce. So just a thank you to the Chamber, to Gilliam County, and to the state for the funding. Then we received a thank you note as well from Rod McGuire with the Woolery. Same thing, thanking us for the COVID-19 grant. And then the last one is a letter from, or a note from Jessica Barnett on behalf of the Condon Youth Baseball, just thanking us for our support as well. They also received a grant. So again, all of those are available. I won't read them all, but for folks who want to see them, they're available online with the court packet materials. Let's move into consent agenda. Questions about the consent?
Did anyone have any questions about the materials in the consent agenda?
No, I will just note that in the original minutes that were sent out in the discussion about transportation, there's actually 2 motions in there. And so I let Teresa know, and she's added the second motion that was made so that that's accurate. But I just wanted to flag that for the record, that the one that was originally out in the packet was missing one of our motions. So Teresa's got that corrected.
Okay. I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda, which consists of consider approval of January 20th regular meeting minutes, consider approval of grant submittal authorizing the Special Transportation Fund and Federal 5310 Formula Fund applications, and consider approval of amendment number 1 to subscription services contract number ORMS-0205. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Okay. Under unfinished business, 5.1 is to discuss the Gronquist Building's future and meeting date. And there, just to recap, during our last meeting, we had charged Lisa with getting the parties together in Arlington to talk about potential next steps for the Gronquist Building. And Lisa, do you want to just do a quick update on where we are with the date and what the plan is? You're still muted.
I'll unmute myself first. It'll be much more productive. So the meeting date is set for Monday, February 22nd at 1 o'clock in Arlington or via Zoom. There'll be a Zoom link available for those that aren't able to be physically present. And the invitees, I'm just looking back into my notes here because I don't have my Outlook open. It was as determined, so we have representation from the port. I believe I invited the port president and the port manager. We have obviously yourselves from the county. We have the City of Arlington mayor invited. We have the current Gronquist owners invited. We have the superintendent and Alan Cunningham from the school district invited. And I feel like I'm missing somebody else that I invited. But for the most part, everybody has been accepting. And it will be a public meeting. As I said, Zoom link will be available for those that are unable to be physically present.
What about the North End Health District?
Would that be, I'm trying to remember the name.
That'd be
David Anderson.
David Anderson. I believe I did invite him, but I will double check that for you.
And then I don't know how important maybe the fire district too, just that you'd have all the entities in there.
Do you have a specific person you'd like?
Joe Claughton.
How are you spelling that last name, Commissioner?
Ooh, help me, Sherry. C-L-A-U.
L-A-U-G-H-T-O-N.
Okay. I'll make sure that they get invited too.
And then I'd like to add to that there's some very serious discussions going on between the Manor Group and the port. And it's pretty exciting what's going on there. The port would like to, or did ask me if the court would consider their purchase of that and taking over the management as a good faith effort to move on to an item that's further down the agenda. So just throwing that out there that they asked me that specifically in their work session the other day. So it's on the table.
okay. Okay. Anything further on the Gronquist Building?
Regardless of whether something goes together with them, I know they're working on it, but I think it's important to go ahead and get everybody together. And even if something changed in ownership, it would give some guidance on how to utilize the building.
Yeah. How quickly was the port wanting to move if they decide to purchase it?
I think we need to get a meeting together with them and be part of that discussion, but I think that they're just really interested in, and I know the Manor Group would like to be done as soon as possible. There's probably going to be, they're going to have to get down to the dollars and cents of it, but yeah, I think everybody's on board with it once they get there.
Okay.
It'll have to be approved by their board, obviously, but.
Got it. All right. Anything else on Gronquist Building? If not, let's move into 5.2, which is discuss Cedar Springs Road. Pat.
Yeah, Dewey's not on here today, but him and I had a meeting, and we did want to make sure that the court understands that it looks like we could repair that road and not make any immediate decisions or get in a big hurry, but repair that road to get through until next January, which January 15th, he would need to submit, or the county needs to submit a cost to repair the old road to Waste Management for their budgetary process, which is in our host fees agreement. And that somewhere between now and then, I suppose the county should be working on if they want to pursue the option of putting in another one. I will probably not be part of much of that discussion because it's going to have a financial impact on waste management and I will have an actual conflict. But I think to me, just looking at it, the decision really is, do you put the money towards repairing the old road, which waste management will pick up 80% of that cost as per the host fee agreement, or do you build a new one to alleviate the problem that keeps coming up? And I think you'll run into some resistance there just because I think they feel like within the host fees, they probably already paid for that type of improvement in the area that they have affected the residents of Gilliam County. So I think that's really what it gets down to is dollars and cents. And then if you just repair that road, obviously the issue still exists. We still have a train.
Yeah, I mean, my feeling is again, I think it depends on how much the repair is going to be, but if the repair is comparable to what a new road would be, I don't know why we wouldn't pursue the new road if it's going to be a similar amount of money and fix two problems at once that's my take, but.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that'll get down to negotiation with waste management, and I think you'll find resistance on them putting, I don't know. Who knows what they'll do, but, and maybe not. Maybe that money could just be transferred over to the new one and they'd be fine with it. I don't know. That's a conversation for down the road.
Yeah, that was something that I know we had discussed. Oh, go ahead, Sherry.
I agree with, if the costs are comparable, it makes more sense to build a new road, but I think there's some negotiation there that we could make with waste management, and it's to their advantage as well to
Absolutely.
To relocate that road. So it's conversations we probably should start having, because if we wait, then here we are again, waiting.
Exactly.
So if we could initiate some of that and find out what the costs are for both.
Oh, Dewey's working on the cost. In fact, I believe he's meeting with to get the engineering costs this morning.
Okay, great.
He's got reach out to Kerr on the grinding and repaving of the old road, so we'll have that put together. But he's working on. He just didn't get them all together for this meeting. Didn't get it back from him.
Okay.
Okay, great.
And then I know part of the issue is, some of the other studies that need to be done, and I think we need to do a real search on what's already been done with the railroad that's gone through there without duplicating work that's already been done in that canyon. And I'm not sure how to access that. Maybe Lisa can help with that.
Okay.
I know when Lisa and I talked the other day, and I'm confused about that, where Oregon Trail crosses that road 3 times, and I never had that understanding in the last 67 years. So I thought it was clear over on the other side of the canyon. So just all of that needs to be addressed. And I'm sure it's all been addressed at some point because there's a road and a set of tracks there right now.
Right. Somehow we navigated it in the past as a county, and I'm sure we can do it again if need be.
Okay. So it sounds like next steps are to wait a little bit on Dewey to get us some cost estimates for both options. And then maybe in the interim, Lisa, if we can start digging into some of those other questions around the Oregon Trail, any flora, fauna concerns that might have come up, those kinds of things, just start digging in, because I would hate for us to go down the path of a new road, for instance, and then discover that we can't do it because of other things, considerations. So,
yeah, because that road needs to be repaired. If we're not, it's to the point where it's going to fall apart if we don't make some actions.
Yeah, it should have been resurfaced last year, so that's where we're at.
Yeah, right.
We got held up in this stuff last year, and now we got another year. But Dewey's confident we can patch it and get through till we can make a good, solid decision moving forward.
Okay, good.
Okay, awesome. Okay, anything more on Cedar Springs? If not, let's move into the Port of Arlington Willow Creek dispute meeting dates. Pat. You had a meeting with them?
Well, I went to their work session. Have some things going with Peter's retirement and stuff, and went to the work session, and it came up somewhat in discussion, but they are willing to do, sit down. They have a little struggle with Zoom because they don't work on the Zoom platform meetings. They're in person, but we can work all that out. I think that, moving forward and getting everybody on the same page and trying to get something positive going for the county where we're both working with the same voters. And so what we can put together and move forward. They have some significant projects out there. They just we're still in the running, got on the short list for a huge project and that could come into Gilliam County. So, and they've been working on that from the port level. So there's stuff going on. If we can get together and work together to get them here, it would be beneficial to every resident in this county.
Great. So in terms of next steps, do we want...
They want a couple of dates. They would like to get a couple of dates.
Okay, so what I'll ask is maybe for Teresa to touch base with each of the three of us to figure out what our calendars look like. And I don't know if we want to just shoot for maybe a Wednesday, since those are typical county court days anyway, maybe take one of the off Wednesdays. And then send some dates over to Peter to help coordinate his board. Is that workable, Pat?
Well, it works, except for the police has asked me to be on the bargaining deal for the union, and that was, I think, the date you were looking at for that. I'm not sure when that starts.
So yes, we're exploring what dates work with the union. It's very open-ended at the moment, and so I just threw out some potential just as a starting point. Obviously, I need to tie that in with various other attendees, so it's still potential for shifting those dates at the moment, Commissioner Shannon. So if we have to flex them to accommodate this meeting, then we're still in a great spot where we can do that.
And I think the sooner we can get this with the port moving forward with all the transition they've got coming up, the better off we are. So.
Okay. Do we want, originally we had discussed having our legal counsel there. Do you guys, that would be Jeremy in this case, would you like him, we may start with his schedule if you would like him there.
I talked to him yesterday, and my kind of the feeling I got from him, obviously he has his opinion, but he said these types of things are normally worked out if the two groups will sit down at the table and have a discussion. I don't know that we need legal there for any particular reason other than let's get the groundwork going. I mean, I think that just it may hamper having a good open discussion.
Okay. So then what I'll ask is if maybe you guys could send a couple of available dates to Teresa to help coordinate, maybe in February. So if Wednesdays are open or whatever works best for you, and then Teresa can send those over to Peter to coordinate with his folks. That work?
Works for me.
Okay, great. And we'll move forward with that. Wonderful. Anything else on the port and Willow Creek? Okay, then let's move into 5.4, which is discuss Montague Solar LLC red zone application. And I see that Brian Walsh is with us. So Brian, do you want to make your pitch? Are you there? Hopefully he's still sitting there and just has us off.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm on my phone because it's a little bit easier. I didn't know what today's agenda was about. We submitted our application, so so I didn't know where in the process you are at this point with the applications, or if the red zone resolution, has been adopted and sent off to Business Oregon, or what stage we were in right now. But yes, we had submitted our application for Montague Solar. We're looking, to get that, firmed at least, for the 3-year abatement, which is, that's just an automatic, I guess, at this point right now, but the extended abatement is there. Typically, either the county and other counties have gone back to seek comment from the taxing districts on the extended abatement, and I don't know if that's happened within the county, but you know, our pitch remains the same, and I guess to update you and the commissioner is that, you know, we're definitely we're having some issues with labor and getting labor and skilled labor, union labor to build our projects, not only this one, but others in Oregon. We have 5 projects going to construction. We have one of them in construction in Clickstack County, and so we have some firsthand experience on what we're going through with you know, finding a labor pool to do that. You know, the end result is, you know, COVID's causing some issues on, you know, that you can't share housing anymore. People are less likely to travel from further away, and we don't have enough local talent here. So you either have people driving long distances to get to project sites because they want to stay in the comfort of their homes at night rather than in a hotel or publicly. But all those things are driving up, you know, gas, travel, expenses. So we're seeing this firsthand. But anyways, yeah, we have some issues. We're struggling with the economics and seeing costs that are driven up for the projects. I guess one, you know, I guess bright side is we do have a high voltage contractor for the Montague Solar project that we brought on board right now, and so we kind of split it into 2. So it's a smaller labor pool. They don't have as much issues, but like for the other contractor that would build the entire solar array and the much more labor intensive side, we're seeing we're having a tough time. That's all. I guess I can't go into great detail on that, but yeah, we've got some challenges right now with the project, and it's affecting the economics and viability.
And Brian, the intention is that you guys would break ground in February, so later this month. Is that still, based on the labor issues you're describing, is that still on track, or? So
we're still trying to start construction. It might be March that we start breaking ground, and what we would start breaking ground on in order to maintain our schedule that we need to maintain under, you know, to keep with our interconnection and COD schedule and BPA, is we need to start working on the substation parcel. So, you know, the 2-acre, 3-acre parcel just at the corner of Bottom Miller and Highway 19 right there. The substation work would begin in March. So there would be groundbreaking and just the substation in order to get that going. So we wouldn't be building or working on any other facilities, and that's mainly getting the substation, the foundation, grounding grid, everything in to accommodate, you know, the transformer delivery to keep that on time, which wouldn't be until, you know, later this summer. But yeah, it's an approach that we're taking, even though that we don't have a contractor for the rest, but we want to preserve our schedule. We're putting more dollars at risk at this point in order to maintain that desired schedule. But yeah, we have some challenges on the other side.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but because the power purchase agreement with PGE as well probably has a similar timeline, does it not, that it has to be done by the end of the year? Is that right? I'm bound by confidentiality right now, so I can't break that at this point. But in discussing any power purchase agreement, so I'm sorry, I can't speak further about any power purchase agreement at this point. Oh, okay. Question for Brian.
I was going to ask the same question, but you beat me to it. Yeah, I was just wondering if he's having to go for an extension, but it sounds like he can't answer that.
Unfortunately, yeah. I'm always forthcoming when I can be, but I can't at this point.
Okay. So I think our plan is that the court is going to go into an executive session to discuss this further, and we'll come back out. So I've got a script I need to read, and for those on the phone or on Zoom, basically how this works is the County Court and legal counsel and county staff will be going into a separate room. And so you guys will sort of be sitting in a holding pattern in this room. And then when the executive session concludes, we'll come back out into this regular session. So you don't have to do anything, you'll just sit tight, but that's where we're going if you're wondering. So I will read this. The Gilliam County Court will now meet in...
Campbell?
Oh, go ahead, Les.
This is Les Ruark for the record, and I apologize for interrupting, but I would like to ask a question of the court regarding the exec session before you go into it. So you probably will want to go ahead and read what you need to read first, and then maybe I could ask my question. Okay,
sounds great. The Gilliam County Court will now meet in executive session pursuant to ORS 192.6602E, which allows the court to meet in executive session to consider information to negotiate real property transaction, and pursuant to ORS 192.6602F, which statutes permits the court to meet in executive session to consider information or records that are exempt by law from public inspection. Representatives of the news media and designated staff will be allowed to attend the executive session. All other members of the audience are asked to remain in the public virtual meeting room while the court reconvenes in a private virtual meeting room. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on or otherwise disclose any of the deliberations or anything said about these subjects during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No decision may be made in executive session. At the end of the executive session, we will return to the audience in the public virtual meeting room. So let's go ahead. What's your question?
You've identified the actual provisions of 192, which obviously authorize the purposes or put forth the purposes of the exec session, but there's also the opportunity that counsel has, at least on your behalf, of identifying the actual records or category of records, so to speak, that are being looked at, courtesy of 2F. There are a number of conditioned and unconditioned records. There's a whole body of exempted records that could be in play, and I would appreciate if it's possible for you to, at this point, and if it's not at this point, at least after the exec session, you could have your legal counsel identify it by email to me. I'd like to learn what actual set of or what provision of 192 is would identify for the average person the actual records that you're looking at.
Well, I'm happy to respond for that, acting as legal counsel for the county for this executive session. So the executive session is in regard to the Avant-Garde project, the project that's this agenda topic. Any decisions that are going to be made in the public session after the executive session is open to the public again. If the cited provisions doesn't have to deal with records so much as privileged information, and that information is at this point oral, coming from their legal counsel to the county court. So there's it wasn't intended for the purpose of discussing any records.
Judge Campbell, if I may.
Yes, go ahead, Les.
So essentially, the legal counsel is saying that it's a matter of attorney-client privilege that's involved rather than an actual record. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's correct.
Okay, would you be willing, or Judge Campbell, perhaps, and I don't mean to hold things up here because it's not my intent to do that, but I would like to appreciate, or I would like to receive some kind of written reflection of that understanding, because the citation that you are evoking is to allow you to discuss in exec session records that are supposedly exempt from disclosure. So I'm wondering naturally, well, what are those records? And there are a number of, as I've indicated, there are a number of claims or provisions of the statute that you could actually use or put forth identifying that body of record that you're looking at. But I'm hearing that essentially, rather than that, what you're going into executive session to discuss is attorney-client privileged information provided by legal counsel. And that's just a little bit different than what you've identified. But having said all that, I appreciate you putting up with me, and I'd appreciate it if I could end up with some kind of reflection in writing by email as to what the legal counsel has just expressed. And I appreciate your patience with me.
Thanks, Les. Okay, so we are going to, I'll have Lisa go ahead and put the court in the private, and work her magic, put her in the private room. And then for folks in the public, we will be back as soon as the executive session concludes. So please just sit tight where you are, and we'll be back.
We don't have to do anything, Judge?
So quick process check for you. I will open the room for those that are invited. You may get a pop-up button on your screen that you'll need to click to enter, or it may port you straight over. So sit tight and keep your eyes peeled. We'll come back and find you if you don't get there.
Okay, so we will come back into our regular meeting and go right into 6.1, which is consider approval of Montague Solar LLC Red Zone request for years 4 and 5. And my feeling is that I would like to see what a potential agreement might look like before making a decision on whether to even consider it. So I'd like to maybe have, I don't know if it's appropriate to have Lisa maybe open up a discussion with Avangrid and explore what those terms might look like before really we make a decision. That's my feeling. I don't know how you guys feel about that.
There were still some things that we had some questions about that we need to have answered. Some little technical questions, and I don't think we're ready to make a decision.
Just from my point of view, I didn't, Commissioner Wilkins, that's why I called you yesterday. I didn't know what the point of today's, agenda item for the red zone, because normally the process would be you would seek public comment and also from the taxing districts on the application for the extended abatement. So I think that you still have that process. And in the meantime, usually what just happened in Wasco County and what happened, in Sherman County with red zone and what happens in Cook County is then there is an agreement that gets negotiated between the county administrator or the county commissioners or one of them directly. It can happen in various different ways, but then there's a proposal that then gets circulated then for comment by the taxing district. So I think the next natural step would be to have that discussion and negotiation for what are the possibilities of what that extended abatement agreement looks like, and then seeking public comment from it. I didn't expect, or you guys were going to try and decide today, and hopefully, we could have clarified that so you didn't have to deliberate as long as you did. But I think there's still a couple of next steps that you have to take in getting public input before you could even make a decision or want to make a decision on whether or not to grant the extended abatement. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure, it does. We did need to have that discussion between the court, so it was very productive.
Okay.
So is there, in terms, commissioners, is there sort of a next step for this? What would you like to direct?
Laura, do we need to make a motion to direct Lisa to begin the negotiations, or can we just do that just by directive to ask her to?
You can, as you prefer. You don't need a motion to have that happen, since there's no extra authority you're giving to her.
Right.
You're into an agreement, but just to come up with sort of the terms and negotiations, then that can be just orally.
Yeah. So I think that's where we're at, is to have Lisa see what those terms may look like, and if it's something we want to consider or not. Open up the dialogue.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point for folks who are listening, that I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, commissioners, that this isn't a final decision on years 4 and 5. This is let's see what Avangrid's proposing, and if there's a common ground that's acceptable to the court, then we would consider it.
Judge Campbell, may I ask a question?
Of course.
I'm a little intrigued by the fact that I guess I'm prefacing my question here, but I'm a little intrigued by the fact that there was an apparent preliminary negotiation at this point on something that hasn't really been put out there on the table. Maybe this is a question more for the legal counsel, but can the words preliminarily negotiating be accurate description of what just occurred for the last 55 minutes or so?
Sure, I'm happy to respond to that. So what the county court just did was go into executive session to discuss the application that was before them that I believe was part of the agenda packet, which is the Avangrid application for the extended abatement.
All right, I appreciate that answer. I'm a little, just as one interested person, I'm a little bit uncomfortable with the fact that perhaps what occurred for the last 55 minutes or so may not have been necessarily needed to have occurred behind closed doors, more or less. Although I don't really know what I'd miss or what I may have missed. But a part of all this is that there wasn't any council representation on the part of Avangrid at this point that I'm aware of. But anyway, I digress. That's what happens when you get old. Thank you for allowing me to ask.
Les, to be clear, I think the conversation that we're having now is that we haven't had a negotiation with Avangrid, and so the directive is to see what the terms that they are proposing might be. Because if you see their application, it's just basically saying they would like years 4 and 5.
And I understand that, Judge, but I have to ask, that's, I guess, what I'm thinking of, the discussion that occurred between the 3 members of the county court and its legal counsel. That's how I see it, as being is preliminary discussion for entering into the negotiations with Avangrid. And I'm not so sure that maybe some of that at least couldn't have been discussed in open session. That's where I'm coming from, I guess.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Les. So it sounded like by directive then, Sherry, that you were suggesting that Lisa start that conversation and then come back to us with maybe the parameters or outline of what Avangrid's proposing.
Yes.
Did I get that?
Yes, as zone manager, then that would be something we would ask her to do for us.
Okay. Pat, you comfortable with that?
Yep, I'm fine with that.
Okay. Okay, so I think that's next step. So Brian, Lisa Atkin, and our office will be in touch with you to talk about potentially what you're proposing and start that conversation.
Great. Thank you. I'll look for the email. Appreciate your consideration.
Judge Campbell, may I ask for the court's indulgence and ask one more question?
Sure.
And I'll try to make this the last one I ask, at least for a while. What is the role that Lisa's taking on now in this endeavor, that is becoming sort of a liaison or a negotiator on behalf of the court, is that a part of the actual job description that was put in place for her position?
She has one of the lovely phrases that says other duties as assigned. So when the court determined that she was the red zone manager, I think they assigned that duty to her.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on this particular piece? Are we ready to move on? Sherry says move on. So let's go ahead and go into number 6.2, which is discuss Community Renewable Energy Association advocacy of Senate Bill 154, solar pilot payment in lieu of taxes. And I think Mike is on there.
Yes, Judge, can you hear me?
I can. Take it
Great.
away.
Well, thanks very much for including me in the agenda today. There's a whole lot I'd like to talk to you about. We had quite a conversation offline when you were in executive session with Brian Walsh about all the developments in renewable energy and the legislation that's going on. Korea is being asked to weigh in on a number of these measures that are being considered by the legislature. And Gilliam County is a very important member of Korea. And I wanted you to first be aware of some of the things that are being discussed. And then secondly, get your take on one specific bill that is coming up quickly that I think you probably have interest in. The issue that Korea's been dealing, and I'm not really asking for any position taking on your part. If you have feedback, I'd love to hear it. And hopefully Gilliam County will be participating in Korea's policy discussions on the 12th. Is where we're probably going to make a bunch of decisions on what to support and not. So the one today has to do with the solar payment in lieu of tax program that is sunsetting this year. And that's a program that was used in a number of counties for their solar developments, and it was negotiated at $7,000 a megawatt for 20 years. So the developers have indicated to us that the costs of solar and the price being paid for solar have both gone down quite a bit since 2015 when that legislation was put in place. And the $7,000 I think was arrived at a sort of an equivalency with wind per megawatt. But solar has become much less expensive to sell and to install. So the developers were advocating for a lower flat rate. And the compromise that was pretty much run by a work group at AOC, Mallory Roberts and other commissioners came to a consensus that the number should be 5,500 a megawatt. And Korea listened to that from both the local governments and developers concerned and agreed. So Korea's current position is we support renewal of the solar PILT and at the level of $5,500 for 15 years, not 20 years. So that's where we stand. And happy to take any of your thoughts on that right now.
So Mike, were all of the counties, I mean, we have relatively few, obviously we're talking about our first solar development, but I know that like Lake County and some of the other counties that have a lot more, are they on board for that number or did they have concerns?
Well, Judge, let me get to that. And that's the other part of the story here. So what's developing is that Commissioner Williams in Lake County is leading an effort to modify that position. Apparently in Lake and Klamath County, there's a problem with solar. It's being proposed to be installed on irrigated farm ground. And that's not going well with the ag community, and it may not, be a very smart use of resources when you've got lots of other places to put it. But obviously, because there's irrigation, there's transmission, and there's power, and that's where they want to be. That's probably the I'm guessing here a little bit, but I'm guessing that's the nature of the conflict. So Commissioner Williams has proposed that the $5,500 be a floor, and that if the circumstances dictate in a county, they can negotiate up beyond that to try and discourage development in certain spots. So he's suggesting that a county adopt an ordinance specifying where and at what price they would give the property tax relief to a solar project. So what Korea will be, and I've talked to a number of Korea board members, and people seem to be comfortable with counties having the option to negotiate for more. That seems to be pretty acceptable. And so we're going to discuss that officially on the 12th. But I just wanted to make you aware of that dynamic. Now there are other dynamics coming in, like on community solar. They want to have, if there is a floor, they would like there to be a ceiling as well. Some developers would like a ceiling. So if you're going to give a property tax break, it would have to fall between a certain range, 5,500 to say 7,000. So these different nuances are coming along that we're going to have to respond to. So I'm just hoping to get some general feedback from the Gilliam County Court about how you saw the program in general and how you feel about some of these other wrinkles that are being proposed.
I mean, I think Commissioner Williams' idea, I like providing the counties with some flexibility. I'm troubled that developers would be picking irrigated. I understand why they would be looking at it, but I'm troubled that that's where they would be placing it. And it seems reasonable that a county should have tools to either dissuade that or to make up for what they're losing in other valuable ground. To me, that they should have that flexibility. I'm probably always going to say that counties should have as much flexibility as they can. I think options are better than having none. That's my take. What do you guys think, commissioners?
Well, again, we're talking about my pet peeve, which is solar industry taking over our farmland. So anything that the counties can do to alleviate that is something I'm always interested in.
Commissioner Shannon, did you have thoughts?
Mike, I'm just learning about the solar pilot program and the details to it. But I understood that a lot of times at the 7,000 that would drop off in years 12 to 5 because it was cheaper to just pay the taxes at that point. Is there an effect going to 55 with that part of the new proposal?
No, Commissioner, the way the current legislation reads, it's 7,000 for up to 20 years, depending on what you negotiate. So if you negotiate 12 years, then that would be the length of and then it would go to taxes. I haven't heard, there's a few early larger scale projects in Lake County, and apparently, of course, their power purchase agreements were larger then, and depends on how Department of Revenue is evaluating this, whether it's income based or cost of construction based.
Sure.
So it seems like if their power purchase agreement doesn't change and it's income based, the taxes would stay the same. If it's based on the cost of installation, that might be affected by depreciation and so forth. So I really can't answer the question. I think it depends on the nature of the agreement between the county or the city, if that was the case, and the development in terms of what the length of term is. And right now it's either $7,000 or full taxes. And
but you have that option. Do they have that option if the 7,000? If the taxes drop below the 7,000 a year, they have the option just to drop it and then start paying the taxes?
It depends on what was negotiated.
Okay.
If you put that into the negotiation, you have the right to pay full taxes rather than the 7,000. I suppose that would be the case. That would seem like a prudent thing for a developer to do. But I haven't heard of that, frankly.
Okay. No, I'm fine with everything. Yep.
So AOC is going to take this up on Monday, I believe, at the Transportation Community Development Committee. And so if you're participating in that, you'll hear about it again. And they may take a position. There was some resistance at AOC when this first came up to the $7,000 number from folks who felt like it was a giveaway, frankly. But the developers very much feel like we're in competition with Idaho, Washington, California, other places, and it's important to have these incentives. It's also predictable. It also gives the local government predictability. They know what they're going to get. It's not dependent on what Department of Revenue says it's worth. So there's some certainty that's involved too in having these levels. So I appreciate your feedback. Do you think that one of the court members will be able to participate at the Korea meeting next week on Friday?
I am going to try to be there.
Okay, good. Thank
I
you.
have it on my calendar.
Yeah, I'd be willing to too. I mean, it's
Yeah.
whatever you want to do.
Well, I'm trying to line up some folks to talk about a couple of the other big things that are happening as well. There's several efforts to run a really big renewables bill this session. You may have heard of the 100% renewable proposal. And then there's the New Sun R100 proposal, which they're taking different approaches at accelerating our move to clean energy and renewables. And, Brian and I were talking about this offline a little bit, and the way circumstances are now, there's going to be a huge demand for renewables in the next 10 to 15 years. And with if these measures pass, it'll accelerate it even further. So it's important that I think the counties that are going to be infected by it understand what's at stake. And that's where Korea is trying to, we're trying to understand it so that we can explain it. And I'm not going to get into the details today because it's complex and lots of moving parts. But I just wanted you to be aware of that and that positions are going to get taken, and we're going to be asked to weigh in on some of these measures. Another that's of interest is there's a House Bill 2324, which is imposing new labor standards on renewable energy development and solar. And you heard Brian talk about how difficult it is to find help now. This would make it more difficult. Typically, the counties, local governments have opposed imposing new, stricter labor standards on renewables and other projects like that, where property tax incentives are involved. I mean, that's the legislature is trying to say, if you give a property tax break, then you have to take care of labor and make more programs available for the labor force, training, apprenticeships, that sort of thing. And the types of work that would be involved would involve more unionized labor. As one of the developers told me, he has a hard time paying someone union wages to carry a solar panel from the truck to the installation spot. It doesn't take any skill. So I think you'll be hearing more about that at AOC. Korea will take a look at it as well on the 12th. There's a couple bills that are seeking to incent hydrogen development. And I actually did talk to a developer who's interested in hydrogen in Gilliam County, perhaps making anhydrous ammonia from the hydrogen, which is an intriguing idea for those of us who've been in the wheat industry, not having to have our anhydrous ammonia hauled in from somewhere, but have it local. So there's would potentially be a property tax incentive for development of hydrogen. There's also a number of bills that have to do with siting. And I think you might be interested in House Bill 2109, which they say is a technical fix, but it actually would put more siting authority with the county, depending on the size of the project. So there's a good list that Mallory Roberts at AOC's put out, and I'd be happy to share that with Lisa and you if you're interested of those bills, but if you haven't seen it already. But when you look at a long list, it's hard to tell what's real and what's not, and that's what I'm trying to do is parse through that and figure out what things are actually moving and things we should be concerned about, what you should be concerned about, because I have a hard time keeping up. I do this all the time. And so I can imagine, what you folks are dealing with as well. I sent to Lisa an interesting video called "The Far Side of the Hill," and it's about renewable energy development. If you haven't seen it, it's very entertaining and well done. And I think it really speaks to the value of renewable energy in rural Oregon and the differences between rural. It's mostly for focused on Lake County, but former Judge Thompson has a huge part in it and does a good job. So if Lisa, you can share that with the court or whoever else wants to see it, I appreciate it. I think it's a good piece. It ought to be more widely dispersed. So anyway, I'm here to answer any questions you might have. Appreciate your participation in Korea, and we'll try and keep you up to speed on what's going on.
Great. Commissioners, questions for Mike?
No, but thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank
Okay.
you.
You bet. Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to 6.3, which is update on Condon swimming pool. Catherine, you still on? I think I see her there.
Coming. Hello there.
Hello. So what's the latest? Do you want to catch us up on the
I don't know when the last time I updated you guys, but so we formed a pool committee. We have not met again because they were waiting for a story to be written about the pool. And I was trying to pass the buck and let some of my committee members, and they were very silent, very, very silent. So I do have some other information to put together for a story to put out a survey. But in the meantime, the council agreed at their council retreat 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago to go ahead and approach the school and offer to operate the pool for another year, have a 1-year lease for 2021. And we know that we're going to have to do some fixes to the pool this spring to make it operational in the summer. And most of it has to do with the boiler, the solar system. We've got some preliminary quotes of about, well, we have one for over 10,000 for just one piece of it. So we're thinking of an estimate is probably going to be about 25 to 30,000 to fix. So what we would like to propose to the court is that we apply for the grant. We'll come up with a match. We have some money that we use for another source that we will redirect it to match for the pool. And if we could put in for the grant, have the match set aside, but do the repairs in the spring and hopefully are successful with the grant and get the money July and reimburse the city for those out-of-pocket costs is what we're asking. I think right now we had talked about when the school was going to apply for the grant, we were going to resurface the pool. We're going to put that on hold for now to figure out and see if we can do some sort of fix that will get us for at least another year and then give us time to get a plan together of how we want to proceed for the next 5 years, whether we want to keep this pool going, whether we want to build a new pool, and how we're going to go about doing that. So that's what I'm asking the county today is if they would consider like reimbursing us for pool funds that will happen in the spring and not after July 1st.
So commissioners, just so you're aware, we did allow, the school district had a similar request for us previously because of when the grant money is available starting July 1. And so previously we had approved the school district moving forward with construction and then us reimbursing so that they could do their construction window when school was out. And so I just wanted to put that on the record that we have allowed previously grant applicants to go ahead and move forward if they were working on projects that were sort of time sensitive for construction reasons. So, but before we moved forward, I just wanted us to discuss whether you all are comfortable with that. That was obviously the previous court that made that decision. And so that way the city knows what to expect.
Busy. Yeah, I think the continued support of the pool is a given for me. So whatever we need to do to help them proceed.
And I'm glad a precedence has been set so we can use it. I'm 100% in favor of whatever it takes to keep this Band-Aid together until we come up with a long-term solution for that pool. So I'm in complete support of it.
Okay, so it sounds like we're on board if you, Catherine, want to go ahead and submit. And we probably, I haven't talked to Nathan about the timing for budget this year, but I'm guessing if passed is sort of that we would probably have a funding decision anyway by April timeframe. So you would probably know anyway what you were funded at that point,
Okay.
is my guess. I haven't talked to him about the budget schedule this year yet.
Okay, and we're fine with it being reimbursed. I mean, as of getting the money on July 1st, that is fine too, if that works in with the budget cycle of the county. I just wanted to make sure that we could make the repairs and get some funds back for that, for doing that. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep, I'm comfortable with that. Sounds like the commissioners are too.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Any questions for Catherine on the pool before she should probably still stay on here, but any questions for her? None from Sherry. Any from you, Pat? Nope. Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Let's move on. We're under new business and we will go to 7.1 was scratched off and we're rescheduling her for March. And so let's go on to Paul for he's our Veteran Service Officer, for a report. Paul.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can. Go ahead.
All right. Well, I'm not quite sure what you're wanting from me today, but Lisa said that it would be nice to share some of the things that I do for veterans, not necessarily duplicate the quarterly report that we submitted earlier. Basically, what I do is assist veterans with claims for disability related to their service, and also survivor benefits for survivors of deceased veterans that either had a service connection, a service cause of death, or simply was a wartime veteran and are low income. So we've had several veterans pass away in the last month and a half or so, and I've filed 2 or 3 claims for benefits for those surviving spouses. Whenever I hear of a veteran that's passed away, I send a condolence letter and a pamphlet on survivor benefits to the surviving spouse, and hopefully get some response and move forward with a claim. Other things I do is to help veterans sign up for the VA medical program, which can be done in the local communities now under the Mission Act. I have several veterans that use the Gilliam County Medical Center as their primary care provider program under the Mission Act. Other things I do is help veterans get license plates that show that they had veteran service, parks permits, all kinds of state benefits that are available to veterans, depending on what their service connection was, whether they were disabled and under what percentage. And I do a lot of outreach, the best I can under the COVID situation. We did a nice program for Veterans Day this year with a gift certificate program, which was actually Lisa's original idea. And we were able to serve a couple hundred veterans with a nice dinner and or groceries as an alternative. I think we spent just under $5,000 of our outreach fund for that for Veterans Day. So that worked out real well. We're hoping to be able to do more in-person type of outreach. I used to do seminars on the local level. I'd like to get those going again when that is able to be done. Let's see, what else? Does anyone have any questions specifically for me?
Questions for Paul? I will just say while you guys are unmuting that if you've seen his quarterly report, you're just doing a fantastic job. I don't know how you fit it all in, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't have any questions either, but I really appreciate the time and energy that you put into this. It's very important. So thank you.
Thank you.
I would agree. Thank you much, Paul.
You betcha. It's my pleasure.
And Paul, for those, because quite a few people watch us after the fact from home, so for those who know a veteran that maybe need to tap into some of the services that you can offer, what's the best way for them to reach out to you? Is that, when are you in Condon, and sort of where can they find your contact information, all that kind of stuff?
Well, if they've been a resident of Gilliam County in the last year, they've got a flyer from me. I did a mass mailing to every residential address in June of last year with my picture and my contact information and things like that. If they didn't get that or misplaced it or something, then the county website has a category for veteran services, has all my contact information. I am in Gilliam County every Thursday from 8 to 5 and see veterans there, and also do home visits on Mondays when that's a need.
Great. So folks who are listening in, make sure that you are reaching out to Paul if you know a veteran that could use some help. He's a wonderful resource. Additional questions or comments for Paul? Anybody from the audience have anything for him? If not, thank you so much for coming and talking to us, and keep up the great work.
Thank you. Bye now.
Bye-bye. Okay, moving on to next item is 7.3, which is consider approval of resolution number R 2021-02 and resolution number R 2021-03, resolutions declaring transportation vehicles as surplus. And I see Marla is on here. Marla, do you want to tell us what's going on? Or do you want me to? She might need a minute to unmute. So I'll recap, and maybe Marla's trying to get herself unmuted. So basically, Marla's asking for two vehicles, the Honda Odyssey and Honda CR-V, to be declared surplus so that she can trade them in for 3 new vehicles that she's looking at purchasing for transportation. As with most of the transportation program, these are state grant dollars that are coming in to pay for most of it. So I think she said the total grant project is $120,000 for those 3 vehicles. $96,000 come from grant funds, and then $24,000 of our match. And then obviously the trade-in will go towards that as well. Questions on the 2 resolutions?
I don't have any questions.
I do not have any either.
Is there a motion?
Do we need
go ahead, Chair.
Do we need a separate motion for each resolution, or can we combine them?
I think you could combine them.
Okay, how about I move to accept resolutions or adopt resolution number R 2021-02 and resolution number R 2021-03, resolutions declaring county vehicles as surplus equipment.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we adopt resolution number R 2021-02 and R 2021-03, resolutions declaring county vehicles as surplus equipment. Is there further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Okay, let's move on to 7.4. Consider approval of resolution number number 2012-04-A1, a resolution adopting an enterprise zone redesignation. Lisa, do you want to take this one?
Some internet issues. Can you hear me okay?
Kind of.
You're a little scratchy.
Yeah, that's what I thought. You've all been very scratchy for a good hour now, so I know I'm having issues. So do you want me to try and talk through it, or would you want to run with it, Judge?
I will run with it, and you can send me a message if I'm missing anything. How about that? Okay. So this is stemming from our conversation, our last regular meeting on January 20th. And the context was we were talking about making sure that the enterprise zone and the red zone is being handled by the same people, so there was continuity. And so after we made the determination on the red zone of that Commissioner Wilkins would be submitting it and that Lisa would be managing it, then there was a question about whether we needed to update the enterprise zone designation to make sure that those were matched. The current enterprise zone resolution lists the previous planning director, so that was when Susie Anderson was here. And so it probably needs to be updated anyway, but Lisa's gone ahead and went through and updated the resolution, just making it so that she would be managing that as well, so for that continuity that the court had discussed previously. Do you guys have thoughts or questions about this one?
I just have a question. So we have not, anybody applied for any enterprise zones since Susie was in that position, correct? Okay.
Not that I'm aware.
Yeah, I have the same concern that came up earlier in this meeting, in that when you're looking at Lisa's job description, do these types of things actually fall under a job description? I do not like using the as other duties as required. I think it's too general, and this is a fairly important deal. So just stating that, and I have talked to other counties and kind of know where they're at. It's not unreasonable to have the administrator or administrative position doing that. Some of them are under the assessor, and so I don't really have a problem, but I do have a little problem that it's really not identified in her job description for this type of stuff.
And she does, just to be clear, she does have economic development as part of her portfolio in support of a court. So I think it could potentially fit under here, but point well taken that we need to be mindful of that, of mission creep.
That's all I've got.
The one question I have is, and this is just a technical thing, is for the numbering of the resolution, if that needs to be a current number, or if that goes back to the 2012. So that may be something that if we wanted to approve it today, that we could approve it, but maybe give a little leeway to change the numbering if we need to on it. I don't know if it needs to be a 2021-04 or if it, I worry that it'll get lost if it's not sequential, is the only thing that I notice about it. But that's a relatively minor thing.
Yeah, that makes sense too. Do we want to bring it into the current numbering system?
In two minds as to whether it should follow the year we're in or the year the original resolution came from. So I'm not wedded strongly to how it sits at the moment.
Okay, so if you guys are okay, I would make a motion to adopt the resolution with an amendment, that amendment being to change the reference, so it's resolution number R 2021-04, so that
Yes.
it's sequential.
Yeah, I agree with that. Now a second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we adopt the resolution, which would be amended so that the reference is resolution number R 2021-04. Is there further discussion? All those
No,
in
I think
favor?
we should, yeah, I think we should be consistent.
Okay. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we're moving on to 7.5, which is discuss resuming in-person county court meetings. Pat?
Yeah, I went to the staff meeting the other day and that kind of came up in the staff meeting there, and I see that they've opened the courthouse up, and I would just like to state that every other meeting I've been into in the county has been in person, and I would kind of like to, I mean, I think we leave the option open, and probably for the unforeseeable future, that you have Zoom access for those that want to access that way, but I would like to see us get back into an in-person meeting.
I don't have a problem with that. Maybe we wait until the March 3rd meeting?
That'd be fine with me.
Yeah, I mean, I would likely, because I have an infant at home and really don't want to bring COVID home to her, would likely be over Zoom just for my own personal what's happening. But if you guys want to meet in person, that's just my concern, is if we open it up to the public, I don't have control over who's bringing stuff in, and I do not want to bring something home to her.
There isn't any problem logistically setting it up that way, is there, Lisa?
No, it's really easy and convenient to run the Zoom. It takes minutes to configure it so it can happen. And I think it also provides great connectivity for the public that cannot be present, or any of our agencies or our legal counsel. And it also provides the recording that we want that then goes on to the YouTube page. So it's really slick and nice to be able to have both avenues as options.
Yeah, I think it just needs to probably become part of our future.
Catherine Greiner. Can I ask you a question?
Yep, you bet.
Did I see in your conference room that big screen? Is that
Yes.
what you put people on? That would be really nice to have.
Yeah, if you guys are more than welcome to use our conference room also, if you want to.
We'll just steal your big screen.
Or
No.
Actually, we, Kelly has been upgrading our technology since
Cool.
the building's been closed. So we actually have a big screen in the courtroom now that we use COVID money to do.
Right on.
So we have that technology. We can do it.
Good.
And
Yeah.
actually, your owl did the exact same thing without the big screen. I mean, it could have been projected on there. So, yeah, but if you do need it, you're more than welcome.
Okay. Thank you.
Great. So did I hear that we would start with the March meeting? Is that what you're thinking, Jerry? Or
Yeah.
Pat?
It doesn't matter to me. The sooner the better is all I'm saying.
Yeah, if you're gonna stay on Zoom, then the next February meeting is fine with me. I was just thinking more of if you were gonna come back in, we'd wait one more meeting. But if you're gonna stay away, then we could come back in February.
Just until the vaccine's a little bit more widely distributed, then I'll be back in the flesh.
I totally hear that, and
That's going to be a while. They said on the news today they're going to put it into all the prisons first, 1A.
Oh,
Moved them into 1A.
Oh my gosh. Okay, whatever.
so the next meeting then will be in person, and I'm assuming we'll still try to do. Normally we do the last meeting of the quarter in Arlington, so the next meeting would be in Condon.
Okay.
Sound good?
Yep.
Okay. Let's go on to 8.0, which is announcements and next meeting. As I just noted, the next meeting is February 17th, and we will be doing that in person at the courthouse in Condon, but we'll also have Zoom accessibility, so sort of a hybrid. And then I'll toss it over to Sherry and see what you're up to.
Oh my, what am I up to? Well, we have some training for our staff tomorrow that I'll be participating in. And then, of course, NORCOR's on the third Thursday of every month, and CAPCO meets on the last Friday of the month. And then I'm poking into other things, trying to just listen in to things and glean as much information as I can as we go. That's it.
Great. Pat, what about you? What are you up to?
As I said earlier in the meeting, I went to the Port Arlington work session last week, and the chamber in Arlington has been going through some transition and trying to decide what to do. Marta has resigned, and so I've been attending those meetings, and it looks like they're going to move forward with a chamber, some new director, and they've got that in place now, and work with the Condon Chamber as they transition into a tri-county and see how all that works. So that's
Great.
participate in that and kind of help them through some of the information on that was out there for them to make their decision with. And then other than that, being on the Eastern Oregon legislative leadership calls and the weekly COVID calls and communicating with Chris, so we're on the same page and getting the same information. And there's lots of concerns out there by the public and when they're going to get theirs, and it's a ways out. We don't have enough vaccines, and there's not going to be enough for a while. Thanks.
Okay. And as for me, I am making the transition back. So I'm going to meetings now and trying to figure out a schedule. So for folks who would like to meet with me, I'm happy to do it. Best way is you can always just send me an email directly or reach out to Teresa and help coordinate usually Zoom calls, again, since I have a newborn at home. One of the things that I am working on, I know that Gabrielle from Painted Hills Natural Beef has reached out to both of you about a project that they're looking at possibly locating in Gilliam County. And so I had a conversation with her on Friday, and we agreed to do, as a next step, to do a joint meeting for her with some of our state and federal partners, as well as support, to just see what kind of resources might be available to help assist. So I'm asking, and Teresa's helping me put together a meeting probably in the next couple of weeks with those partners around the table so that we can start connecting her with USDA and other entities that might have some resources for that, that project. Other than that, I'm still waiting on the state to get back to us on building codes. The contract is stuck with their contract specialist. So every couple of weeks I send an email and ask where we are. And every couple of weeks they get back to me and say it's still being reviewed. So the city of Boardman is ready to move forward. They're okay with the contract. Our legal counsel has reviewed the contract and is comfortable. So as soon as the state says that they're okay, then we'll get it on the agenda for review and possible approval. Other than that, I think that's pretty much it. Anything else for the good of the order or anything from the public before we sign off?
I just want to thank you for your continued work, even though you're supposedly on maternity leave, that you have not gotten away from your duties, and I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Happy to serve. Yes, I'm becoming very efficient at nap time, though. That's the key.
Sometimes you need to nap at nap time too. Don't forget that.
That is true. Leslie,
Judge
you took yourself off of mute. Did you have something?
Are you recognizing me?
Yes. Go ahead.
Oh, good. Okay, let's remark. Judge, I just wanted to make sure I had the proper understanding. The in-person meetings of the court will include the opportunity for the public to attend, or are we talking in-person county court with the continuance of Zoom and dial-in?
So the courthouse is open as of this morning. So I would anticipate we would require folks to still socially distance and wear masks, but I am assuming the commissioners are comfortable with the public being in the courtroom for those. And they're both shaking their heads.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Yes, we need to follow all COVID rules. Follow all COVID rules, please.
And as I've advocated previously for it, and I'm assuming it will continue. In addition to the Zoom, there'll also be dial-in, which is actually a part of Zoom, so that when we get the link to the Zoom, we'll also get the link to the phone numbers.
Yes. Yep. All of that will continue.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments? I hear a baby crying in the background, so I might need to sign off here. She sounds angry.
She's probably hangry. So yeah.
Yeah,
No,
I think she might be hungry.
I'm to
Okay.
for today.
If nothing else, then it is 12:34, and I will go ahead and adjourn this meeting.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.